All right, folks, we are a week away from the NBA season tipping off. This is the big week. This is the big week. We got the Eastern Conference predictions today. We got the Eastern Conference predictions today. ESPN Top 100 list is out. I have not seen it. I've seen the Derek Lively placement that has everybody very upset. But I have not seen the rankings as a whole, so I'm excited to look at that. Oh, it's 100 to 50. Ugh. So I'm just going to ignore the fact that he's late. I was putting the final touches on my on the PowerPoint. You guys got to understand, man. This isn't just this. I don't just snap my fingers and these things appear. Slightly diarrhea? Why the fuck are you guys saying that? Scotty Barnes or Draymond Green currently? Scotty. Bill, shit. In attendance. Just do Western Conference. No one cares about the East. I care about the East, brother. I'm honestly not talking about Klay Thompson or the Mavs game yesterday. I don't really need to or want to. There's nothing really to say. Quentin Grimes looked really good. That's fun. I thought Lively looked good. PJ Washington, that was his first preseason game. I thought he looked good as well. You know, it's just so hard to take things away from preseason games where your two best players don't play, man. Just admit Clay's cooked. I'm not going to admit that. I saw people they were like, oh, Clay's not creating, Clay's not doing this. It's like, dude, honestly, man, that's not what the fuck they brought him in here for, dude. If the Mavs get to a point where it's like, if you expect Klay Thompson to be doing all of these different things, then you're in for disappointment. Obviously, 0 of 9 sucks, but don't get me wrong, he was bad last night. No one is currently playing how they will in the regular season. I'm watching around the league. I've watched preseason games. I've spent my mornings, believe it or not, rewatching preseason games the night before. Kind of half-assed in the background, admittedly, but God, it feels like the Mavericks take it the least serious. Live right now. ESPN's top 100 and Derek Lively. Ranking. Eastern Conference predictions. Get in here now. Wait until they play with Luka. Cope, it's a kid issue. Hey, buddy, any team without their two best players offensively are going to look bad. That's just the truth. Talk about LeBron ran on traveling for preseason. I agree with them. I was saying on Locked On, why the fuck are the Mavs traveling to LA for one game? I think it's stupid as fuck. Welcome back to the YouTube negative chat. So I teased some stuff on playback last night at the very end of the stream. I can't wait for you guys to see. Starting next. Can't decide if it's Tuesday or Wednesday yet, but I'm very, very excited. I'm very, very excited. Now, somebody in the NFL. Oh, Amari Cooper just got traded to the Bills. Okay. It's funny because I was literally just saw this on Twitter just this second. But I was just thinking. I'm a fantasy football player who has Garrett Wilson in a league. Does Devontae Adams hurt me? Part of me kind of feels like it might be an okay thing for Garrett Wilson, huh? Like a little bit less attention on him. He might feast a little bit. He's been really good the last couple weeks, but just more consistent. But I got Amari Cooper and... Yeah, Bubba, thanks. I got Amari Cooper and... Garrett Wilson. What up, Ronald? You know what's crazy is my hair used to be around this long. I went back and looked at some old stuff. My hair used to be around this long, man. All right, let's just get into it because I feel like we have a lot to talk about. Again, I'm not really going to talk about the Mavs preseason game last night. I've already talked about it. The amount I want to talk about it. I've already reached the limits of how much I care about it. Do you see Luka's new shoes, the new colorways? Yeah, I'm thinking about them. My next pair of shoes has to be Kai ones. It has to be. But I really don't need shoes currently, man. You should invest in my stem cell operation. I have Luka 2s. They're nice, but a little stiffy. I think the Luka 2s are bricks. I'm going to be honest with you. I think they're really bad. Luka 1s, awesome. Luka 2s, bricks. They hurt. They feel like shit. See the new Mahomes Adidas Texas Tech gear? No, I have not seen that actually. The Compazzo 2s? I need some. Yeah, I do wonder how Jordan feels that Luka only wears Luka 1s. Like pretty much exclusively wears Luka 1s. Did he even wear the Luka 3s at all? The Gortman 1s? Hey, I'm starting to shoe brain and Gortman's going to be my first guy. I don't know what the fuck Smallville is. Isn't that the Dr. Pepper thing? Oh, Superman show. I don't know. Never watched it. All right. The Luka Tuas. ESPN's top 100 list. It's stirred up some controversy. This is only 100 through 51, but I've already seen one very specific ranking that has set the Twitter world ablaze. And that's the only ranking I know. That's the only ranking that I know. I'm talking about Derek Lively, and we'll get to Derek Lively when we get to him. But I haven't seen any other rankings here, so I'm excited to dive into this list. You guys know I love me rankings lists. Some people think this is the lowest form of content. You know, I disagree. It's just a nice vehicle for us to talk about players. Let's get into it. Again, this is just 100 through 51. Full disclosure, Monday streams when I'm doing my top 100 list. I have it pretty close to finished. Not 100% finished yet. So I don't have like a lot to go off of this with. Let me pull up my little rough draft just to see how I feel about some of these. Let me pull up my little rough draft. I'm so excited for this NBA season, man. It's so close. You can literally taste it damn near. Literally damn near feels like you can taste it. Anthony Simons. Jack with the $9.99. Sorry that I'm late, but what are your thoughts on firing Jason Kidd after that atrocious performance yesterday? Yeah, he's got to go. Absolutely has to go. Him and Mike McCarthy, package deal, package firing. Get them both out. Get them both out. Anthony Simons all the way down at 100. I think he definitely has the potential to be much higher than this. Unfortunately for Anthony Simons, it comes down to health and being on the basketball court. And also kind of a weird fit with that backcourt, but okay. I don't want to spend too much time talking about these players individually because, again, I'll be doing that on Monday in my top 100 player list. Chris Paul, not sure if Chris Paul will make my top 100. I guess we'll have to see. Still a good basketball player, still a great floor general. Mike Conley at 98, just going to say right now, feels low. Herb Jones at 97 is egregiously low. Egregiously low. What is the rationale here for Herb Jones being all the way down at 97? I can't say that I agree whatsoever with that ranking. Al Horford at 96. Jalen Suggs at 95. That also feels a little bit low to me. Keegan Murray at 94. Brook Lopez at 93. So they're really marking down Brook Lopez quite a bit, huh? Jabari Smith at 92. Jonas at 91. Interesting. So Jonas a better basketball player than Herb Jones. Is that where we're at? I mean, there's zero argument for that, huh? Next to no argument for Herb Jones being higher than Jonas Valanciunas. Do they have Herb Jones listed as a center? Okay, no. That'd be kind of crazy. Wiggins at 90. Big drop-off for Andrew Wiggins. Big drop-off. Michael Porter Jr., kind of a big drop. Hartenstein here at 88. I've already seen the Hartenstein Lively thing. Going from unranked to 88. Naz Reid at 87. Jaime Jaquez at 86. So what's their thing? Is this like my preseason lists are usually predictive. I'm trying to predict how it'll look at the end of the season. Do they do something similarly here, or is this just like a where these guys rank heading into the season? How each player will perform this season. All right, so it is predictive. Okay. I'm only harping on that because, I don't know, Naz Reid, Hartenstein, I think are better than Jaquez. Especially if this is predictive. Like, Jaquez being ahead of Keegan Murray, to me, just feels weird. Lou Dort at 85. CJ McCollum, 84. Huge drop for CJ McCollum. He drops 40 spots. Marcus Smart at 83. Mitchell Robinson, 82. Miles Turner, 81. Jeremy Grant. Fred VanVleet. Yeah. Brandon Podziemski. Okay. Jaden McDaniels here at 77. See, I'm just, spoiler alert, I think in my rankings I have Herb Jones ahead of Jaden McDaniels. I do feel Jaden McDaniels is reaching this overrated territory, which is kind of weird to say because a player that has the profile of him, his play style, the defense, stuff like that, usually those guys are kind of underrated. But I feel like as time has gone on, he's become a tad bit overrated, dare I say. Tyler Hero at 76. DiVincenzo shooting up to 75. All right, a little aggressive, but I like it. Zach LaVine drops nearly 40 spots. Jared Allen drops nearly 25 spots. Okay. If the rankings are based on games played from January 3rd to the All-Star break, Allen will be in the top 50. Oh, that's when they had that crazy 18-2 run. Austin Reeves at 72. Clay here at 71. He's dropped 30 spots, but I think if Clay ends up being the 70th best player in the NBA, I think you're pretty okay with that if you're the Dallas Mavericks, right? Klay Thompson ends up being the 70th best player in the league. I think that's a win for the Mavs. Bradley Beal, huge drop. Jalen Green, Brandon Miller. Cade Cunningham at 67. They're going to eat their words. I'm telling you right now. They're going to eat their words when it comes to Cade Cunningham. Same salary. Would you prefer Michael Porter Jr. or Clay? Michael Porter Jr. Same salary? That's not even a question, dude. Draymond Green, 66th. Malik Monk, 65. Well-deserved. He's awesome. Emmanuel Quickley, wow, 64. Cunningham showing love. That's low for Cade Cunningham. I'm sorry. Cade was good last year. I just feel like he gets sort of ignored because of just how horrible the Pistons were. Chris Middleton at 63. KCP at 62. That's high. That is high. I mean, that is high. That's kind of insanely high. Josh Hart at 61. I don't know if I would say Josh Hart's a top 61 player in the NBA. Desmond Bane at 60. Caruso up to 59. Kobe White 58. DG the PG 57. He's dropped 20 spots. And here he is, Derek Lively. Mr. Derek Lively II, all the way up at 56. And this has been by far, I think, the most controversial ranking in this poll from what I've seen on Twitter. And I will just come out and say it. I don't think Derek Lively will be this high for my list. Okay? I think he'll be around top 60, top 70 or so. Sorry, top 70, more so. But let me say this. The biggest tweet that I've seen in relation to Derek Lively's ranking here. And again, I think this is aggressive. This is me saying this. I think this is an aggressive Derek Lively ranking. This tweet right here from Carson Breber. We need to collectively calm the fuck down about Derek Lively. Hartenstein is a far better basketball player and is 32 spots lower. Why is he 20 spots higher than a far more established version of switchable, rim protecting, efficient finishing, decent playmaking big Jared Allen? So, in my rankings, personally, in my end of list rankings last year, which are different than my preseason list, I did have Hartenstein ahead of Derek Lively. I did have Jared Allen ahead of Derek Lively. So all of those things that he's saying right there are perfectly reasonable, I think. I will say this, though. And I also will say, just full disclosure, I think both those guys will probably end up being higher than Derek Lively on my rankings, my future rankings. Hartenstein is not a far better basketball player. I'll draw the line right there. I don't know if I can get to far better. If you want to say Hartenstein's better, fine. But I think far better is pushing it a tiny bit when Derek Lively was just better in the playoffs than Hartenstein was. You know, and I wonder how much that gets factored into things here. I thought Hartenstein was incredible last year. He was awesome. There's a reason why he just got a $30 million a year bag. But yeah, he's going to have to cash some checks this year. Lively's become, and this is, I've been saying this for a while now. Mavs fan base on Twitter is reaching an unhinged level. It's reaching an absolutely fucking unhinged level. I don't know what it is. I don't know what. I'm assuming it's because of how good they were last year, but I also think it's a nice little concoction, a nice little mixture of a rabid stand-em in Luka, a rabid stand-em in Kyrie Irving, those two being on the same team, those two kind of clashing back and forth, and then a Mavs fandom that's always been kind of, I want to say, like, disproportionately outspoken on Twitter, like relative to like size and team success. I always felt like Mavs Twitter has always kind of been loud. But now it feels like Mavs fandom is rabid. They go after you. And I'm not saying this as a positive thing. I'm saying this as a negative thing. They go after you for just standard basic basketball opinions. Like the amount of times you guys have rated the chat to tell me, can you believe Jason Tipp said the Mavs are the fourth best team in the West? And I'm just like, okay, like what the fuck's wrong with that? OKC is unhinged as well. I do agree with you there. OKC is very much unhinged. But and I also think it's just a defense mechanism. Like I think Mavs fans have had to develop this defense mechanism because there's always been the doubters about Luka, right? So you're a little defensive about that. If you want to go all the way back into the 2010s, late 2000s, defensive about Dirk. And I do think also having Lively, like this is a genius tweet by Carson because he's Lively and Hartenstein. So you're getting these two rabid ass fan bases, the Mavs fan base and the Thunder fan base, pitted against one another. Like this is a gold mine here for interactions and engagement and content. So just pretty funny. 56 is aggressive. It really is. I mean, that's high. Jaren Jackson Jr. at 55. Şengün was not ranked last year. RJ Barrett up to 53. I saw people mad about RJ Barrett's placement. I didn't know it was 53. Just saw some people talking about it. RJ was really fucking good last year. Really good last year after getting traded to the Raptors. Franz Wagner at 52. I think that's a little low. OG at 51. I'd probably have OG in the top 10 or top 50 as well. Yeah, Lively being one spot lower than Jared Jackson Jr. He's got a lot to prove this year. He does. Derek Lively, in a weird way. Like the expectations that have been set on him, which is funny because last year they weren't even that high. Now it's like sky high. But, we'll see. You guys know I think the ceiling is very high for Derek Lively. I've tried to temper some expectations from you guys. Just try to calm them down a little bit, but if Derek Lively's the 56th best player in the NBA this season, that is a huge fucking win for the Mavs. Huge win. Wanting Mavs media to realize it's their place to promote Mavs as current West champs and clear number one is not Rabbit. It's your job. My job? My job is to do whatever the fuck I want. Will Lively break Jokic's assist record if Luka goes down? It's possible. It's possible. Everyone says Mavs defense will be bad, so when it's top 10 again, Lively has to get credit right. Yes. So the Mavs defense is top 10 this year. Derek Lively will get a ton of credit. They were not top 10 last year, by the way. But I get what you're saying. He'll be a top 3 player and average 30, 15, 8 with 6 blocks. If not you, who? Why don't you do it, bro? I don't know. My favorite part about this whole, slightly biased experience, the billions of dollars, obviously, the penthouses, but outside of that, simultaneously getting shit on for being too, biased towards the Mavericks, but also not being biased enough towards the Mavericks at the same exact time. I get it from everyone at Watts. Yeah, from March onwards, they were top 10. So, yeah, if the Mavs defense is top 10, yes, Derek Lively has to get a huge amount of the credit there. They'd be top 10 in the second half of the season. Yeah, from March onwards, they were. I'd love for Lively to be more offensively aggressive for the last preseason game. I think Lively's played well this preseason. I saw people shitting on him last night. I thought he played fine. Like, I don't... So just from the Mavericks side of things, no Gafford, he will not be in the top 50. No PJ, he will not be in the top 50. Is that kind of it? Those are kind of the two other guys you would think would maybe be ranked in this list. Obviously, Kyrie and Luka will be in the top 50. People did get mad that one time he had the Mavs as the 4th best offseason in the NBA. I know. I remember. And no Dwight Powell yet. He's got a good chance to be in the top 50. I think PJ's a top 100 player in the NBA. He'll be on my list. I think Gafford's kind of borderline for me. I think I'm probably going to end with about 4 Mavs in my top 100, which is good. That's fine, especially when 2 of them are in the top 25. One of them won. And again, if Lively ends up being the 56th best player in the league, that's really good for the Mavericks. If Klay Thompson ends up being the 71st best player in the NBA, that's very, very good for the Mavericks as well. So, yeah. No, Omax. This isn't bottom 100. This is top 100. If they gave Dwight Powell the keys to the offense, he'd average Jokic-esque numbers. Big time worried about this Clay experiment. We can't afford another Tim Hardaway Jr. without a consistently dominant three-point shooter. So it's interesting that you say that. We can't afford it. They can, actually. And the reason why I'm saying that is Klay Thompson is, believe it or not, making less money than Tim Hardaway Jr. did while he was here. So the Mavericks did afford to make the NBA Finals during the Tim Hardaway Jr. experiment. Heard you were 6'9" with a 68-inch vertical. That's selling me short. So I didn't watch the game. Did Dwight Powell get hit in the face? I don't think so. I tuned out in the fourth quarter onwards. All right. I don't think today's going to be a super, super long stream. I'm already saying this. We're 40 minutes in. So we're going to get right into the Eastern Conference rankings. This was hard, guys. This was hard. And I really, really got to... I really got to bring it this year because last year was an embarrassment. Last year was an absolutely embarrassment. I need some, I need some engagement here. I want you guys to be back and forth with me. Once we talk about each team, I want you guys to tell me where you think they're going to finish. I want you guys to tell me if I'm too high on them, I'm too low on them. Last Friday, we did the best and worst case scenario for every single NBA team. I'm here to tell you right now, I have already contradicted myself. I didn't think it was possible. You would think it's stupid, right? Because the idea of the best and worst case scenario is, well, that's the best worst case scenario. I've contradicted myself already on these. Oh, man. But here we are. The East is hard. It's a difficult conference to predict. I think it could end up very similar to last year where 50, low 50s in wins could get you the 2 seed, just because I think the bottom of the conference will not be nearly as bad this year. I think that there will be a little bit more competitiveness with some of those middle class teams. And secondly, I think the Celtics will be really good again. And I think there'll be some top end teams that eat a lot of the wins. This has to be a better year for me. Eastern Conference predictions by the. That's what I'm going to start going as. The. That's hard. Here are my predictions and the results last year. So, the number 1 and number 15. Perfect. Pistons dead last. They are dead last. Celtics number 1. They're number 1. It's all shit from there. Now, I'll give myself a little pat on the back. I had the Raptors 14th. The Raptors, if I remember correctly, some blog boys kind of like the Raptors to be like a play-in team or like a fringe playoff team. I thought they'd be shit. They were the 12th seed. Wizards, I was a little bit higher on them. Okay. Here's 2 really bad ones right here. Pacers, I had at 12th. Obviously, they ended up 6th. They ended up making an Eastern Conference Finals run. Orlando Magic, I had 11th. Obviously, they were 5th. I really missed the mark with those 2 teams. Just didn't think the Pacers would have that high level of an offense, and I just didn't think the Magic would be that great defensively. Or I thought their offense would pull them down even if they were that great defensively. And their offense was bad, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. Hornets, I had in the play-in tournament. No surprise there. Brooklyn Nets, I'm trying to remember why I was so high on the Nets. I can't quite remember. But they were kind of feisty for a little bit. The Bulls, I had at 8. That's about where they are every year. The Knicks at 7. Obviously ended up being low for the Knicks, but that's about what people expected out of them last year, if I'm giving myself a bit of a pass. I had the Heat at 6. Sixers at 5. I'm patting myself on the back a little bit. I was lower on the Sixers than most, and obviously they ended up being a play-in team last year, so I think that's a bit of a dub for me. The Hawks at 4. That was a fuck up. That was a fuck up. The Bucks at 3, they ended up being 3rd, and the Cavs at 2. So, wasn't great prediction-wise. Before we really get into this, everyone give a shout-out to Melverick in the chat, community member. He created these graphics that we're going to use that just makes these much easier to look at, and actually helped me out tremendously just in the process of putting this all together. So here we go. 15th, dead last. Who do you guys have? I'm interested to hear who you guys think is finishing last in this Eastern Conference. To me, there's a couple of teams that are just clearly at the very bottom here. And Celtics. You guys think the Celtics finished last? Nets, Detroit's, Wizards, Hornets, Brooklyn, Wizards, Nets. I did end up going with the Wizards as the team that I think is going to finish last this season, which is very surprising to me because this whole time I thought for sure I'd have the Nets last, and even then I thought the Nets could potentially be one of the worst teams of all time. I don't think that anymore. This Wizards team I think is going to be horrible. I think they're going to be absolutely terrible. And, it might not be that bad for them. This is going to be a clear building year with Sarr and Bilal. Like, make sure Sarr, Bilal, even Bub Carrington, all those guys get the opportunity that they need to grow as players. And I'll just tell you right now, Sarr and Bilal, the way the two Frenchmen, the way that those two play, there's going to be really, really, really rough stretches. Really rough stretches. And off to the side right here, this is their record last season. This is their over-under on wins, according to Vegas. And this is my prediction. If I highlight it, that means I think it's a lock. So I think the Wizards winning under 20 games is a lock. Kuzma probably should be on a new team by the end of the season. Jonas will help them out. I mean, they were dead last in rebounding a year ago. So him just being there, him being this sort of stabilizing force there will help them. But I don't know how much, and I don't know if he finishes the season there. And just from what we've seen in the preseason, from just doing some research, Brian O'Keefe, who's their coach, has said, that they want to space the floor, and that's kind of how they want to play. This means you probably won't see a lot of Sarr and Jonas together, but also at the same time, they don't really have great floor spacing. They don't have great floor spacers. So I'm not entirely sure how this is going to work out. I think this is going to be a very, very bad basketball team. See Kyle Kuzma break Ben Simmons' ankles in airball? I did see that, yes. Yes, I did. But, there's some things I guess to look forward to. Jordan Poole has a bounce-back season. That could be fun. He was at 20 points per game, 6 assists per game after the All-Star break. Sarr's had some flashes here and there in the preseason. That looks good. Bub Carrington was obviously awesome in Summer League. So that's just what you're looking for, is those young guys doing things. And I just think you're going to lose quite a bit of games. They were 25th in offense last year, 28th in defense. There's a real chance that they're bottom 3 in both. I said Bilal. I always say Bilal Coulibaly. Bilal? I always say Bilal. 14th. So we get the Wizards 14th. That does mean I have the Nets at 14th. The Brooklyn Nets finishing second to last in the Eastern Conference. This obviously isn't much of a surprise. They have signaled to the world that they are tanking. They trade Mikal Bridges for a historic haul in the offseason. Historic in the sense that, Mikal Bridges isn't like a star-level player, but just got traded for, 5 draft picks? They traded with the Rockets to get their picks back, which is obviously signaling that, hey, we're going to be shit this year. We want to be in control of our own destiny. And I don't think you do that Mikal Bridges trade if you don't get your pick back. Now, I do have them over on wins, which is interesting. The Vegas thinks that they're at 18.5. I do think they'll win 19 or 20, which would still have them over their win total, but still have them as one of the worst teams in the NBA. I look at their roster, like if we're comparing them to the Wizards, why would the Nets finish ahead of the Wizards? I like Cam Thomas, just offensively is a better player than anybody on either of those two rosters. And there is definitely a world where he has like an all-star, or at least fringe all-star level season, where there's some people making cases for him. He was 25 points per game on 57% true shooting after the all-star break. We mentioned this in the best and worst case scenario. A 28 point per game season on decent efficiency, that'll win you some basketball games. And I also think that their defense won't be horrendous. Like if you look at what their starting five probably will and should be, Schroeder, Cam Thomas, Cam Johnson, Dorian Finney-Smith, Claxton, that's a pretty solid defensive unit. It's not incredible or anything like that, but it's not like horrendous. You know what I mean? It's not horrendous. They're going to lose a lot of basketball games. That much I think is certain. I have them, so I penciled in just kind of freeballing what I thought each team would win maybe. I had the Wizards at 19. I had the Brooklyn Nets at 23, which would be 5 over their over-under. But, there's enough veteran pieces here that I feel like they'll be a little bit more competitive than we might think. They'll still be terrible, though. All right, we knew that these teams would be the bottom two. Who do we think we have at 13th? We knew the Wizards, Nets, one of those two would be 15th, the other one would be 14th. What are we thinking for 13th? This is where things got difficult for me, and this is where I immediately contradicted myself. This is where I immediately contradicted my my best and worst case scenario list. I have the Chicago Bulls at 13th, even though in the best and worst case scenario, I had their best case scenario 9th and their worst 11th. I'm not entirely sure why the fuck I did that. I'm not entirely sure my reasoning for that, especially once I factored in they owe San Antonio a top 10 protected pick this upcoming season. So there's going to be quite the incentive for them to tank. How the Bulls over the Raptors, we'll talk about that here in a bit. We will talk about that here in a bit. But let's talk about the Bulls really quickly right here. I think this team is going to prioritize being a young basketball team for once. I know that's not what they've said. That's not their statement. That's not who they've been each of the last 4 or 5 years. But I do think that that's going to be what they do this year. They're going to, the ball is going to be in Giddey's hands a lot. Bazulis, I think they're going to run him out there quite a bit. And I do think by the end of the season, Zach LaVine might be on a new basketball team. Vucevic, if the Bulls are lucky, are going to be on a new basketball team. And if he's not on a new basketball team, that doesn't affect their win total in the slightest because he's fucking terrible. I know the Bulls Invitational, a.k.a. the play-in tournament, that's where this team has been, it feels like, every single year. But I can't quite get there this year, man. Their depth is young and or unproven and or just straight up bad. And I think there's just going to be some growing pains. And we've talked about what made them kind of a feisty team last year was that, their defense really wasn't that bad at times. And there were stretches where it wasn't that bad. But their defense was very Alex Caruso dependent. Right? Maybe you can argue that their offense will be a little bit better this year with Giddey and stuff like that. And I watched their preseason game last night against the Bucks. What was up with Giannis? Giannis had like 4 dirty plays in that game. Like, what was going on there? Anyways, they were bombing threes. I did kind of like the ball movement. I think Giddey was the only starter who played in that game. Lonzo is going to be back. He's playing in a preseason game tomorrow as of the time that we're streaming this. So that's all interesting, but I don't know. I just think that this will be a bad team, and I think down the stretch of the season, there's going to be an incentive for them to like really bottom out and keep their pick and what should be a loaded draft class. So that's the Chicago Bulls, and that's why I have them 13th, even though I'm immediately contradicting myself. This is just where I ended up coming. 26 wins is what I had. So their over-under is 27.5. That's probably about where they'll end up. I'm assuming Lonzo's going to play on opening night. 12th. 12th is where I put the Pistons. They had 14 wins a season ago. Their over-under is 25.5 wins. I do think that they'll end up getting over that. I had them at 27 wins is what I put down. Around that number. 27 wins. And I think that it'll be a good 27. Like, I think if you're a Pistons fan, obviously you're tired of losing. You're tired of being one of the worst teams in the NBA. But what you're really hoping to see this year, I think more than anything else, more than anything record-wise, is just something that you can feel good about moving forward, like feel really, really good about. Something concrete that you know you have moving forward and you can really build on. And I think you're getting that this year. I think you're getting the Cade Cunningham leap. I absolutely think that is coming. 24 points per game, 56% true shooting in his 18 games after the All-Star break. I know we've been saying it forever. Cade was good, man. Cade was good last season. He was a good basketball player. It got lost in the sauce. It got lost in them being terrible. But he played really well, and I think that you're going to see him play even better this upcoming season. Jaden Ivey, we don't really try to put too much stock into preseason things. Jaden Ivey has looked really, really, really good. Really good in the preseason. He's starting to look more and more and more and more comfortable in that two guard role next to Cade Cunningham, playing off of him, creating by himself. And for them to reach what I do think could be a play-in ceiling, I think a lot would have to go their way. But, if a couple of teams just die and are injured, them to sneak into a 10 spot or right around there, Jaden Ivey's going to have to be good in the second unit when Cade's off the floor or if Cade's hurt or something, just sort of running the offense. That's something that's been a bit of a struggle for him. But if he takes a leap there, that's a good backcourt right there. Offensively, that's a really good backcourt. And I do think their new floor spacers, their vets that they went out and got. Now, in the preseason game against the Warriors a couple nights ago, their four new veteran sharpshooters were 5 of 25 from the field and 1 of 15 from 3. So that's not what you want to see, right? But those guys will help this team out. They'll help Cade Cunningham out. They'll space the floor. It'll make life easier for those two guards. And their offense will be better than 27th in the NBA. Now, their defense will probably still be terrible. That's what's like really limits them. And if I'm a Pistons fan, I really want to see something from Duren defensively. I want to see Jalen Duren look like he belongs in the NBA on defense, because we know on offense he's a stat sheet stuffer. Can he prove that he belongs defensively? That's what I'm looking forward to. Sar Thompson still hasn't been cleared to play yet, I believe. But once he does, can we see something offensively from him? An offensive leap? And again, it's Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey. Show me something. Show me something. Cade, I'm putting a lot of faith into you, brother. I'm putting a lot of faith. I do have them over on the wins, 25.5, but not comfortably enough to like be super confident about it. All right, 11th, the last non-play-in spot. Where are we going here? It's hard not to be kind of chalky in the Eastern Conference, honestly. I wanted to sneak some like fun teams into the play-in, or even like a fun team into the top 6. It's really hard to not be super chalky in the East. My projected win totals do not add up. They will never add up. I will never do that. They're more so just me spitballing like, yeah, I can see this number. I'm ashamed to say this. I'm ashamed to say who I have 11th. Every year I plant my flag with this team, and this is the year I'm not doing it. So this might be the year that it works out for them. But I'm already so concerned about Mark Williams' injury. I'm already talking myself into LaMelo playing 50 games. Like, there's just something about this team. Just something about this team that I want to fucking love so much, man. That they feel like a problem child to me. Like they're my 15-year-old son, and he's got so much potential. You know, he could go play college ball somewhere, but he just can't get out of his own fucking way, and he just wants to go party with his fucking loser friends. It's really the Mark Williams injury, man. I mean, I think Nick Richards stinks. And just as a basketball team, they feel so much better with Mark Williams playing, but he just cannot be healthy, man. He can't be healthy. Like, that's just the unfortunate truth. It's the unfortunate reality. And I do think that there's a solid chance that they are the worst defense in the NBA this year. They'll be a fun team to watch. And I'm rooting. I'm begging. I am on my hands and knees and begging for them to make the play-in tournament. I really want them to succeed. Believe you me, I really, really want them to succeed. I want LaMelo Ball to play 60-plus games. I want him to do the LaMelo Ball things. I want Brandon Miller to take a sophomore leap and look really good. Just as a basketball player, I want Miles Bridges to return to form a little bit. I want Mark Williams to be healthy. I want Josh Green to show those flashes that we have seen when he was on the Dallas Mavericks. But unfortunately, Mark Williams, 62 games total in his 2 years in the NBA, 62 total games. He already has a foot strain. LaMelo Ball, 58 games total the last 2 years. I'm hopeful that he'll be healthy this season, but, that just is what it is. We shall see. I look at this team, right? LaMelo, all-star upside. Has already made an all-star game. Mark Williams, really fucking good. One of the most under-discussed players of the NBA. Why? Because he doesn't play. Miles Bridges was a really good basketball player a few years ago. Brandon Miller, incredible rookie season. Really doesn't get talked about enough. Josh Green, we've seen flashes. Not a bad 7th, 8th guy to have on a team like Charlotte. Trey Mann. He's been hooping. They say that he's mini AI. I want them to get there. I'm struggling. I'm struggling to imagine it. So I have them finishing 11th, and it pains me. It does pain me to say that. That means at 10th, the first play-in spot, I do have the Toronto Raptors. What made me choose the Raptors over a team like the Hornets, right? I think the Hornets just collectively have a little bit more talent than the Raptors, just from like 1 through 10. But I like the Raptors' core group. They're 4 guys. They're 4 main guys. I like them more than what the Hornets have to offer. And we talked about this in the best and worst case scenario, stream, that Scotty Barnes, RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickley, Jakob Poeltl, when those 4 were on the court together, only 234 minutes, but they had a plus 11 net rating. Like, they were a good basketball team when those 4 were on the court together. Scotty, those guys just have to stay healthy. Obviously, Scotty missed some time last year. RJ Barrett's already dealing with an AC joint problem, which will probably lead to him missing some time early on in the regular season. However, their depth will be tested. That's what really kind of worries me with this team. I think their depth is bad. I think it's unproven. I don't think it's very talented. And if they deal with injuries, which they will, every team deals with injuries, it's going to hurt them. And that's why they're a 10th seed and not higher. Because, what I told you, those 4 guys together being a plus 11, granted in limited minutes, that's a really good basketball team. But it's just the rest of their roster that concerns me a little bit. I think Quickley's going to have a great season. I mean, they paid him. He was really, really good after getting traded there. I think he's going to be awesome. RJ Barrett was really good after getting traded there. I think he's going to continue to be awesome. He nearly 22 points per game on 61% true shooting. Scotty Barnes was awesome last year. I think Scotty Barnes' ceiling is so high. So if he continues to grow, that's great. But just, look at the bench. Bruce Brown, how long will he be on this team? Probably not too long, right? Probably not too long. They traded for Davion Mitchell. They have Jamal Sheed. They have Jacoby Walter. Grady Dick. We'll see. Ochai Agbaji. Kelly Olynyk looks washed. Chris Boucher, not a very good basketball player at this point in time. So, kind of limits them. But their starting group, I think, is the best that we've talked about so far. And that's why I have them here. A playing team. That'd be kind of weird if the Raptors are a playing team. Would feel kind of strange. All right, next up, the Atlanta Hawks. So last year I went balls to the wall with my Hawks prediction, had them finishing 4th. This year I have them 9th. I'm a little bit scaled back. However, Vegas has their over-under set at 35.5 wins. I think that they clear that pretty easily. That's a lock for me. I penciled them in at 44 wins. I think there's going to be a pretty big gap between the 9 seed and the 10 seed. I think we'll see that. The more I look at this Hawks team, I don't know what the fuck it is, man. I think a lot of it has to do with my feelings toward Trae Young. You guys know I'm a Trae Young defender. I very much like him as a basketball player. I think he's very underappreciated. Why I'm just always so bought in on the Hawks. I'm always higher on them than anyone else. I'm always higher on them than their Vegas win total. And usually I get bit in the ass. However, I don't think I'll be getting bit in the ass this year. I don't. Trae Young, I think, is going to have an incredible season. Just DeJounte Murray's out of the picture. Didn't fit. I think we see a return to all-star form for Trae Young. Dyson Daniels, I'm very interested to see how that addition plays out. Unfortunately, Kobe Buffkin, who you guys know I love and adore, has not looked good at all in the preseason, and Hawks fans think that he's pretty much a wash. So that's unfortunate for me. Risha Shea has looked really good in the preseason, and maybe we were all a little too harsh on that pick, and he ends up helping them win a lot of basketball games. But the story, I think, is Jalen Johnson. That's going to be, in my opinion, the biggest thing to watch from this Atlanta Hawks team this upcoming season. We all kind of know who Trae Young is and what Trae Young's capable of doing. Risha Shea, obviously, the number 1 overall pick. If he ends up being better than some of us expect, then that's really, really good for the Hawks. But Jalen Johnson is the guy who showed real, legit star flashes last season before getting hurt. And if he can sort of tap back into that and be healthy, this will be a good basketball team. Like all of the things I'm talking about, I see people talk about the Hawks and they say, this player's good, this player's good, this player's fun and exciting, this player's fun and exciting, this player can do this. I'm like, I think you guys are just describing a good, solid basketball team. I don't think they'll be tremendous or anything like that. I think they'll hover around 500, be a little bit over 500. But, no, I don't think DeAndre Hunter's good at all. I don't think DeAndre Hunter's good, but, I don't really think Capella's that good either. Let's also not sleep on the Larry Nance. Larry Nance is a very, very strong role player and guy to have on your bench in this NBA. Let's not sleep on the fact that they got him as well. Imagine if this draft turns out to be the best of all time. That would be pretty funny. It is interesting with drafts, though, how we almost know immediately going into the draft. Like, people said 2018 was a historic draft. It ended up being that. I still remember when people thought Reddish and Hunter was the wing duo of the future. The Cam Reddish stuff, huh? Didn't age well. Did not age well. But anyways, I'm high on this team, man. I really am. Bartha with the $4.99. All the Hawks have to do is compromise Clint Capella to a permanent degree. We have compromised Clint Capella. I don't know. I don't know if Okongwu's ready for that. I really don't. It was kind of disappointing for Okongwu last year. But I'm here. I'm here for the Hawks. I think they'll be a playing team. I think that I think that they should just cruise past the 35.5 win over under. I think that's really, really low. All right, here's where things get spicy because there's gonna be teams in the play-in tournament where their fans don't feel like they should be in the play-in tournament. I feel like this is the bottom 9 right here. What the teams that we've just discussed are not the bottom 9, the bottom whatever. The bottom 6 or 7 teams that we've just discussed are pretty safe. Pretty safe to bet that those teams will be towards the bottom of the conference. Now, this is where it starts to get spicy. The cop-out is to say there will be at least 1, probably 2 teams that are just destroyed by injuries all season long, and that leads to them being the play-in tournament. Of course, that's not what we're doing here. So we just have to make some tough decisions. Heat right here at 8. I actually toyed with the idea of having the Hawks ahead of the Heat. But their last preseason game was the first time their starting 5 actually played a game together since the Terry Rozier trade. And I do like their team. We know that Spoelstra's going to get the most out of them defensively. If Jimmy Butler is healthy and plays and tries in the regular season, or at least is healthy and plays. I hate saying the try thing, but you guys know where I'm getting at. They're going to be a good team still. Their over-under is 43.5 wins. I do think that they'll hit the over, assuming they're healthy. And I do, their depth does kind of concern me, but assuming they are healthy, I can kind of talk myself into some of it. Khalil Ware's looked good at times. There's other times where I just feel like Spoelstra's not. There's already that clip of Spoelstra going crazy, telling Khalil Ware to not come and set a screen. I could see Spoelstra being frustrated at times with him to the point where he doesn't play as much as we all kind of expect him to play. But, I think Jovic is capable of taking a pretty sizable step forward. Just a player at that size with that skill set offensively, and he has shown flashes defensively where there's a very good NBA player hidden in there. Haywood Highsmith defensively was really, really solid last year. I mean, that's a fine rotational player to have in your lineup. They did lose some pieces. Kyle Lowry, obviously, they lost last year. That was just time to cut that cord. But Caleb Martin is going to hurt them. Losing Caleb Martin was a good basketball player. DeLon Wright, whatever. But their depth is a little iffy. But this is still a fine basketball team. I have them 8th. I could see a world where they're the 6th seed. But I could also see a world where, I don't know, Jimmy's hurt or something and they're pretty bad. And yeah, they will have, maybe they have to make a choice. Maybe they have to make a choice to lose to save their pick because it's 1 through 14 protected to OKC. Anyways, they were top 5 in defense last year. We know they'll be good defensively again. As long as Bam Adebayo's out there, they'll be a good defense. And Jimmy Butler, for, his age, his injury history, they're still very, very good when he's on the basketball court. Still very, very good. They were +5 when he was on the court last year. All right, now this next one's the big one. The Heat in the play-in tournament is what pretty much everyone's predicting. Now we really got to go out there and piss a fan base off by putting another team in the play-in tournament. You've got the Pacers, you've got the Magic, you've got the Cavs, you've got the Knicks, you've got the Bucks, you've got the Celtics, you've got the who am I missing? The Sixers. It's difficult to try and put a team in this 7th spot in the play-in tournament. But somebody has to do it. And again, it's probably going to come down to who's healthy or better yet, who is the least healthy. And that's why I went with the Philadelphia 76ers. Their over-under is set to 51.5 wins. I'm going the under there as a lock. I think that number will change quickly. So if you're a bettor and there's still 51.5 wins, I would say that under feels very safe currently, only because Joel Embiid has outright said he's probably not playing in back-to-backs anymore. They have 15 back-to-backs. So that already puts him at 67 games played. They basically also said that Paul George will not be playing back-to-backs. Again, that's 15 games right there. Oh, and also, Paul George hyperextended his knee last night. We're still kind of waiting for the details. Right before I went live, I got a notification that Nick Nurse said everything looked okay. So maybe he won't miss any time. But Paul George has not been that healthy, especially recently throughout his NBA career. We know Embiid's not somebody who's healthy very often. And I do think that they will be willing to sacrifice in the name of staying healthy to the point where they're in the play-in. That's kind of how I feel about it. But then again, I look at their roster. Let's say Embiid misses a game. Tyrese Maxey and Paul George are definitely good enough, with Andre Drummond being the backup center. Definitely good enough to win you basketball games without Joel Embiid. Embiid and Tyrese Maxey, obviously, we already know this, are definitely good enough to win you basketball games if Paul George is out. Embiid and Paul George, definitely good enough to win you basketball games if Tyrese Maxey is out. Is this the most departures of a team? I think so, yes. I mean, they basically got a completely new roster. New additions: Paul George, Drummond, Reggie Jackson, Caleb Martin, Eric Gordon, Jared McCain, they drafted, obviously. Yabusele. Maybe Embiid's it's the first game of a back-to-back and Paul George is second. So I was thinking about that. Would it be better to do it that way? Or would it be better to just basically punt the game where one of them sits? I think you'd rather maximize the amount of games with at least one. I think you're right. I think that's the strat. I think that's a strategy. So I just went with the Sixers because I feel like they're going to prioritize health, and I genuinely think they probably look at it and say, we're in the play-in tournament against the Heat in a one-game winner go home with all of our guys healthy. We like our chances. Not only that, but then we completely avoid the Celtics side of the bracket by doing so. If you win that first play-in game and are the 7th seed, you don't have to see the Celtics until the conference finals, if that's the way you want to look at it. I thought NBA wasn't allowing resting as much, or are they just openly admitting it? You have to like announce it though, isn't that what it is? All right, the 6th seed. This was surprising to me that I put this team at 6. Let me explain why, though. I thought before I really got into it, dove into it, did research, kind of really mapped out the season for these teams, that I was going to have this team 3rd. That was what I wanted to do. But I ultimately went with the Magic here at 6th. Their over-under for wins is 47.5. I just kind of penciled them in at 47 wins. It feels about right for me. I think they'll be a good team. I don't think their offense takes the leap forward I'm hoping it does, is what's kind of concerning to me. What I think it really depends on is Anthony Black. Like, I think that's what it depends on. I think they're going to need a point guard. I don't know about the Suggs point guard thing. It looked okay towards the end of last season. Their offense still wasn't good. It hasn't looked good in the preseason. They need like an Anthony Black to step forward and say, I can be the point guard. I can be the point guard. Don't worry, get out the way. Now, I do want to say, I think this Magic team can finish as high as 2nd in the conference. Like, I'm not putting them at 6 and saying I think they're bad or anything like that. I think they'll finish around where they finished last year, which there's nothing wrong with. This conference has gotten better. So if they win the same amount of games they did last year, I think that's a good thing. I think that still shows that you're as good as you were last year, if not better. I don't think Paolo's an offensive engine yet. They need him to take a step forward. They need Franz to sort of rediscover that three-point stroke, obviously. Yeah, and Anthony Black has looked really good so far, and so has Jet. So there's a possibility there. They're going to be tremendous on defense again. Like, they're going to be a top 3 defense again. No questions about it. Obviously, assuming they're healthy. But I'm worried that their offense will just pull them down enough to lose enough games in this very, very crowded Eastern Conference. Like 2 through 6, I think it's going to be kind of crowded. In terms of, that's how it was a year ago. I think it'll be kind of similar. Where having a bottom 10-ish offense is enough to put you below some of the other teams. Orlando should trade for Harden. Luka on this Magic team would be insane, for sure. Would be absolutely nuts. Magic need to go get Garland. It's hard to find the perfect point guard for the Magic because they don't want to sacrifice anything defensively. And it's just like, who even fits that mold? Imagine prime Chris Paul. Prime Chris Paul in this Magic team is one of the best teams you'll see. So it pains me to have the Magic at 6, but that's just where I have them. At 5, this is where I went with the Cleveland Cavaliers. 48.5 wins is their win total. I think I just kind of penciled them in at 48. So just right there. I wouldn't feel comfortable betting on this one. I think this is who the Cavs are. We talk about their ceiling, if they can do X, Y, and Z. We've seen flashes. They had that 18-2 stretch at one point last season. We know they can be a really good basketball team. We haven't seen it translate in the playoffs just yet. But I kind of think upper 40s in wins is about the ceiling of this team. You know, we can maybe break through that center if Mobley really does take that leap we're all sort of waiting for. He's looked good so far this preseason. We've talked about the last 12 games of the regular season. He was getting up. Two attempts from three a game at 45%. Ooh, Cade would be good on the Magic. But this will be a good basketball team. This will be a team that wins a good amount of games. This will be a team that plays just a good brand of basketball. That's good defensively. When they're all healthy, pretty good offensively. They have a star in Donovan Mitchell who can take a game over and get just red hot from three. And when he gets like that, it's really, really hard to beat them. But they have some weaknesses. They have some flaws that just sort of limits their ceiling, I think. And I think that's just kind of who they are. At number 4, this is where I went with the Pacers. I kind of like the Pacers. I sort of like the Pacers. Now, just to fill you guys in, I put the Pacers 49 wins. I had the Magic at 47. So there's just really not a lot separating these teams. You could definitely put the Magic here, and I wouldn't hate it. I just think this is a good basketball team that can have an absolutely elite offense and can be closer to league average defensively than the bottom of the league. Like last year, they were closer to the bottom of the league defensively than they were league average. I think that they can maybe climb their way up to league average defensively. I don't think they're going to be a good defense, but I think having Siakam for a full season will help them. Obviously, you hope Halliburton is healthy for over the course of a full season. You hope Andrew Nembhard takes that developmental leap that you're sort of hoping for. You paid him to do so. He looked really, really good in the postseason. He looked good in the Olympics. But this offense is going to be absolutely disgusting again. They could very easily finish first in offense. Remember, they were first in the NBA offensively before Tyrese Halliburton got hurt. And Benedict Mathurin is back. We'll see what that looks like. I'm not ready to pencil that in as a positive just yet. But off the bench, the scoring power that Benedict Mathurin possesses will help this team out. I'm just worried that he's fucking terrible defensively, which would just kind of hurt the team when he's on the court more than help it. Jarris Walker still has got to show me something. My two guys from last year's draft, Jarris Walker and Kobe Buffkin, are really. I'm done looking at drafts. I'll just leave it at that. I'll just wait until the draft happens. Yeah, Nesmith was great last year. He is just undersized though. They do still feel a little too small. But if you're to tell me, hey, over the course of the regular season, they have the best offense in the league, I think they can finish top 4. Like, that's what wins you basketball games in the regular season a lot of the time. In terms of their ceiling in the postseason. I mean, they did make a conference finals last year, but you want to see that defense inch closer and closer and closer to league average, right? With this group, it kind of feels hard to imagine that, but it's just kind of what you have to hope. They'll just blow out teams in the regular season. I mean, think about how much of a nightmare they are in the regular season, right? Their offense, how quick it is with how much pace they play, how they get up and down the floor, how many points they score, how much effort you have to exert defensively to stop them, and then how much effort you have to exert offensively on the other end to keep up with them. Just kind of a nightmare regular season game. Like, fuck, I got home at 2 a.m. last night. Or a second I have a back-to-back. Like, this is going to be a nightmare. I think they'll be a good basketball team. Third, the Bucks. Their over-under is set at 50.5 wins. I do think they get over that. I mean, they were 49 wins last year in what was a really fucked up season for them. Way too high on the Bucks. They are old, injury-prone, and not deep. So here's how I feel about the Bucks and why I am very high on them. They were a +9 when Dame and Giannis were on the court together last season with a 123 offensive rating. And it's funny, like they finished third in the East last year. Like it felt like such a disappointing season for them. Topsy-turvy up and down. They still damn near won 50 games. They still were the 3rd seed in the Eastern Conference. And they were still really good when Dame and Giannis were on the court together. With a 123 offensive rating. Over under Giannis dirty plays, I'd go 80. Just a little under 1 a game. And in some ways, you could argue that Giannis had the best regular season of his career last year. 30 points per game, 11.5 rebounds per game, 65% true shooting. Like, he was awesome last season. And they were plus 16 net rating-wise. And 677 minutes when Giannis, Dame, Brook Lopez, and Chris Middleton were on the court together. Now, you are saying what you guys are saying is true. This is an old team. They're injured. Chris Middleton had ankle surgery on both ankles this past offseason. Dame is getting older. Brook is a grandfather at this point. He actually might be a grandpa. Has there ever been a grandpa in the NBA? I'm sure there has. The defense just has to be better for the Bucks. They were 19th last year. I do think that this will be a much better defensive team, assuming everybody is healthy over the course of this regular season. They bring in Gary Trent Jr. on the minimum. He's going to help them out. He's going to space the floor. He's going to knock down open threes. Taurean Prince should help them a little bit. DeLon Wright is a good defender. That's what he does. I think this is going to be a good team. I feel confident in them winning over 50 games. I really do. 51, 52 wins. Feels like a pretty safe bet to me. That means at number 2, I have the New York Knicks. It's interesting. I have the Knicks under their win total just because their win total is really high, 53.5. I have them at 53 wins. So definitely under. But not under enough that I would feel comfortable and confident in betting on it. I think this is going to be a good basketball team, the Knicks. I do worry about their offense. I will say that. I worry that their offense is going to be stagnant with Jalen Brunson. They were already kind of stagnant last year, but they lost probably their 2nd and 3rd best playmakers in the offseason with Julius Randle leaving and Dante DiVincenzo leaving. I do think they have some guys who can sort of make up for that. Like Mikal Bridges, he was the number 1 guy on the Nets. It wasn't pretty at all, but he can create for himself. I guess there's a tiny bit of playmaking there. Cat, I think, is a little bit underappreciated as a playmaker, as a passer. You hope Deuce McBride can maybe step into that role a little bit off the bench as well. Cam Payne is not terrible at it. Tyler Kolek off the bench too as a rookie. Hope for the best that he can help out with some playmaking stuff. But I do think that'll hurt them a little tiny bit. And I could see a world where their offense is like outside of the top 10 even and not as good as we're all kind of expecting it to be. They were very Brunson dependent last season, a 122 offensive rating when he was on the court, a 108 offensive rating when he was off. So the offense absolutely tanked. And interestingly enough, they had a 113 offensive rating. So still much worse, but a 113 offensive rating when Julius Randle was on the court and Jalen Brunson was off. So they're going to look for guys like Mikal Bridges, like Karl Anthony Towns, like Deuce McBride to step up in the minutes that Jalen Brunson is off the court and keep the offense afloat. But they're going to be really good defensively. They're going to be very, very good defensively. And the addition of Cat does sort of solve some of those center issues that a lot of people, including myself, had with this roster after they lost Isaiah Hartenstein. So I wonder if they'll still be as dominant rebounding with Cat. I think they'll still be a really great rebounding team just because Julius Randle's a really, really good rebounder. So they did lose that. Hartenstein's obviously a really good rebounder, but Mitchell Robinson's one of the best in the league rebounding-wise. Cat is still a good rebounder. Josh Hart is one of the best non-big rebounders in the NBA, if not maybe the best. So they'll still be a good rebounding team. I don't know about first, but they'll be great when it comes to rebounding. Would they have gotten OG if they had Mikal before? They're the same player. Yeah, I think so. I mean, that's an archetype of player that you really can't have too much of. You can't have too much of that type of player. And when OG was on the court last year, they had a plus 22 net rating in 800 minutes when OG was on the floor. Plus 22. I mean, they were shitting on teams. A 124 offensive rating, a 102 defensive rating. They were 20-3 in the regular season when he played. 20-3. which means they were 30-29 without him, which is interesting because OG Anunoby is like a safe bet for mid-50s in games every year. But now pair him with Mikal Bridges. So even if OG does miss time, you have Mikal Bridges to plug in. 22 is how many games he plays. 23 with the Knicks last year, so you're not too far off. But OG's awesome. He does also have, I talked about who's going to step up playmaking-wise with Randall and DiVincenzo gone. I wouldn't say OG's a great playmaker or anything like that, but I think he's better offensively than some people give him credit for. So this is going to be a really good basketball team. Obviously, they're built for the postseason. Their depth sucks, though. It's not horrendous, though. I do agree it's kind of a weak spot, but it's really not horrendous, and their starting five is really, really strong. So even if they lose one guy from their starting five, I think they could fill that gap, unless it's Brunson. If they lose Brunson, knock on glass, that's obviously going to hurt them tremendously, but you can say the same for a lot of teams' number one options. And then, of course, number one is the Celtics. Their over-under is 58.5 wins. Over. I would be surprised if this team does not win 60 games again. They're going to be fucking awesome. Kristaps Porzingis is hoping to be back by December. Their defense was 3 points per 100 possessions better with him on the floor versus off, but they're still elite defensively with him off the floor. Their rim defense is much better when he's on the court. It's still really good when he's off, though. But they're going to be quite possibly the best offense and the best defense in the league this upcoming season. They were first in offense last year, third in defense. 43% of their shots last year were threes. That was the most in the NBA. 43% of their shots were threes, and they were 39% from three, which was second best. So not only are they bombing threes, but they're draining threes, and it's just a math problem that's next to impossible to solve. According to Dunks and Threes, their adjusted offensive and adjusted defensive rating, they were first in adjusted offensive rating last year, second in adjusted defensive rating. Dunks and Threes goes all the way back to 2014. Only those Dynasty Warriors teams were the only teams to finish top two in both over the course of a season. I believe it was the 2015 Warriors and the 2017 Warriors. So we could be, it sucks to say, but we could be here at the ground floor of what could potentially be a dynasty. We just are. They're going to be a great basketball team. They won't have KP until 2025, though. I still think they'll be great. I mean, I don't know. They're so stacked. They're so loaded. They play such a winning brand of basketball that even KP being off the floor, I don't think is enough to see them fall off. Like 64 to 58 wins. So if you're thinking they go under 58.5 wins, you're thinking that there's 7 wins worse than a year ago. I don't know if I can get there, man. I don't know if I can get there. And for how stacked their starting five is, they really shouldn't be this deep. And with how expensive their starting five is, they should not be as deep as they are. But Pritchard is a really great bench player. Sam Hauser is good. Even like Tillman and Luke Cornett, you could do much worse as your bigs off the bench if, KP's gone longer than you expected, or Horford's out, resting, hurt, whatever the case may be. Those guys could step up and be fine in the context of this team. So they're going to be great again. Pritchard might be better than Clay. They're going to be great again. So I have the Celtics 1, Knicks 2, Bucks 3rd, Pacers 4th, Cavs 5th, Magic 6th, Sixers 7th. I just don't think they'll prioritize the regular season whatsoever. Heat 8th, Hawks 9th, Raptors 10th, Hornets, Pistons, Bulls, Nets, and Wizards. Disappointed in myself that I have the Hornets outside the play-in tournament. I'll be very upset at myself if they do make the play-in tournament, and this was the year that I bet against them. How'd you feel if the NBA had NFL cap rules? I don't understand the first thing about the NFL cap, so I have no fucking idea. I don't know what to tell you. All right, that's all I have today. This feels like a bit of a shorter stream, but I'm streaming tomorrow. We have the Western Conference predictions, which I'm sure you guys are assuming, you guys are a little bit more excited about that one than the Eastern Conference predictions. And then Friday, we have award predictions. And then Monday, top 100 players. And I still got to grind out this top 100 player list. Still got to grind it out. I'm all about grinding. Apparently, Lonnie Walker isn't going to make the roster. That would actually be hilarious. I'm scared to sit down and do the Western Conference, man. I'm scared. It's a scary-ass conference. Nuggets play-in champs. I'm here to tell you right now, there's no way I have the Nuggets in the play-in. Just no way. See you on Grindr? Okay. All right. Peace out, guys. Thank you all for coming out. All of the OGs, you guys know I love you very much. Could have spent your Tuesday afternoon anywhere in the world. You decided to spend it here. New subscribers, I promise you guys will not regret it. Donations, members, thank you guys so much. You never have to do that, but it helps me out tremendously. It makes me feel so good. It's going to be a big year for us, man. It's going to be a big year. Love you all. Enjoy the rest of your day. Talk to you all tomorrow. Bye.